Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of The Suited Shootist. And this week I want to start off with a question. If you were to walk into your local gun shop and you walk over to the used section, you look down and you see a bona fide with box and papers, Chambers Custom 1911, and they're only selling it for $1,000. You'd snatch that up in a heartbeat, wouldn't you? If you were able to get a Knights rifle for the cost of an Anderson, there's almost no reason why you wouldn't snag a deal like that. Because then at that point, you could actually take that extra money and put it towards ammo and training, like so many people claim that they would if when they buy the less expensive option. Well, see, the fun fact is that you can do that exact same thing whenever you're selecting your clothing. Over the weekend, I had poked into one of my local consignment shops, and I actually walked out, and I managed to save myself probably, if I did the math right, about 80% total. I walked out with a couple pairs of slacks, this shirt that I'm wearing now, one other one, as well as a couple of neckties. And here is why, even if you are not big on men's style and men's clothing, that this is relevant to you, is number one, for the guys that genuinely just do not give a shit about what they're wearing. They just want to be able to go in, think as little as possible, give somebody money, get what they need, and get the hell out. Which is fine. The problem is that a majority of the stores that are structured to address that need are, I'm not going to say ripping you off, but they are taking advantage of your apathy. Because the quality of clothing that you tend to get in places like that is Anderson quality. It's Taurus quality. And they're banking on the fact that you're thinking, oh, well, it's just as good, or why would I spend the extra money on XYZ, or whatever, because we've all heard those arguments generally directed at high-end gear. The same thing applies to clothing. So, again, if you are not the dapper gentleman such as myself, and the idea of a collared shirt is somehow offensive to you, this still applies. Because even if you're wearing Carhartt, even if you're wearing, Wrangler denim or anything else, consignment shops are your friend. And I'm just going to give you the examples of my recent purchases, because what I've got here are two very nice neckties. Now, again, I'm not trying to sell you on neckties. I'm just using this as the example. This one is from a very high-end, well-respected Italian fashion house by the name of Brioni. If you follow Craig Douglas at all, you know he is a bit of a Brioni slut. This retails, MSRP, almost $300. And if you find one used online, when I was kicking around eBay, I found them used for about $100. I paid $50 for this. So MSRP $350, I paid 1/6 of the retail price for this tie. This one is a fashion house that I'm not really familiar with. It is Luigi Borelli, but what caught my attention is the fact that, given that it is a Neapolitan brand, and Naples, Italy is kind of one of the meccas of men's style, it lists that it is a 7-fold tie. Construction-wise, this is akin to the cold hammer forged barrel. It is one of those little construction details that guarantees quality and longevity, because the manufacture process is relatively expensive compared to others, and so the cheaper brands don't go to the extra effort. So, because of that, because I just happen to know that little detail, I was able to snag this thing for $40. And again, these things retail for a couple hundred. So I'm not saying that to brag. I'm not saying that to flex. I'm just using it as the baseline for comparison. So I bought these two very fine Italian neckties, this Canali sports shirt. I've got another shirt here that is a Luciano Barbera, a nice lightweight cotton for the upcoming summer, and a couple of pairs of trousers as well. Happily, they are all Italian brands, and what can I say? If I am a clothing snob, I'm a sucker for Italian brands, at the least. I like the way they're cut. I like the fabrics they use and all that. But again, why am I rambling on about all this, and why should you give a shit? It boils down to cost per wear, cost per use. And again, to put it in terms that a lot of us can understand, the baseline entry price for a Taurus or a Sky or a Canic is less than for a Glock or a Sig 320 or the equivalent quality polymer striker fired pistol. And before round one goes through either of those barrels, the first camp is less expensive. However, once you start pulling that trigger, and once you start pulling that trigger a lot, the cheap brands start suddenly becoming a lot more expensive because either they're flat out not working, or something got missed in quality control to where they are unacceptably inaccurate. Parts breakage, back to the factory for warranty, all this stuff, to where the cost per use now suddenly goes up, because if that $300 pistol can only survive 300 rounds, you're talking about a buck a trigger pull. Whereas if the $500 pistol can go through 5,000 rounds, then you're talking about basically 10 cents per trigger pull, if my math is right. You see what I'm getting at here? It's the same thing with your clothing. You go into a department store, it doesn't matter which one, take your pick, and you buy the cheap off-the-rack suit or the cheap... Let's get away from suits, because I know that's not everybody's thing, but you've got an event and you need just a regular button-up dress shirt. You go in and you buy something off the rack that is, call it $30. And maybe if you're lucky, you're going to get, let's say, 30 wears out of it before either the fabric starts breaking down, the seams start coming apart, or it just starts showing unacceptable wear to the point where it's no longer serviceable. So you're at that dollar per wear. However, I can take that same $30 if I buy a higher quality garment secondhand, and I know what to look for. That thing will last me 5 to 10 years with the appropriate care. And so suddenly I'm now getting 100, 200 wears out of it, and my cost per use is pennies as opposed to dollars. And so it really just boils down to, if you spend your money a little bit more intentionally up front, I'm not even saying you got to spend more money. If you just spend it a little bit more intentionally on the front end, then you encounter a lot less maintenance, a lot less replacement cost, and then all that time and money that would have been dedicated to those things can go towards training and ammunition, or whatever, take your significant other out to a nice dinner, take a vacation, what have you, doesn't matter. But even if the prospect of having multiple neckties, multiple suits and sport coats in your closet is not an appealing one for you, this principle applies across the board. The Red Wing 1,000-mile boots are, by a lot of people's measure, a gold standard of a quality work boot. And because of that, they ain't cheap. But you go on someplace like Poshmark, and sometimes, depending on your size, you can get them for definitely under $300, sometimes under $200. So that's the idea, is that regardless of what your preferred level of formality is in terms of your wardrobe, if you just give it a little bit of care, attention, and thought, then you can maximize your dollar spend to the point where you can then take those savings and redirect them to something that you find more worthwhile. Just a thought. If you find it useful, cool. If you have any questions on that or you want to learn more, let me know down in the comments. I'm certainly happy to kind of share my experiences and help people navigate this kind of thing, because it takes a little bit of there's a little bit of a learning curve, but it ain't hard. So let me know what you think. You find this useful? Was this a complete waste of your time? Let me know. Aside from that, hope everybody's having a great week. Stay safe and stay sharp.